What's going on, guys? Today's video is going to be about my longest ongoing project yet, which is making the Facehugger Stasis tank that's similar to the one in Aliens. The first video in this series goes over how we went from this latex facehugger to this fully silicone one. So if you want to find out more about that and the old 3D printed tank, you might want to watch that video first. Other than that, let's jump into part 2 of this video. I decided to get more silicone, that way I can do another pour so I can actually film it this time around. And of course, you can't have a facehugger pour without Ashlee and Phil present. Breaking open the mold felt like opening an old mummy's sarcophagus. Everything seemed to be in good shape still, so we sprayed it down with ease release and started mixing up some silicone. This facehugger was going to be for Ashlee and Phil to keep, so they decided to mix some things up and throw in some green pigment for a different look. The pour starts off with dumping silicone into the top 2 fingers, since that's the hard to reach spot once the mold is closed and upside down. I can't stress enough that this video is not a tutorial on mold making itself. We spent way too much money and used way more silicone than we would have needed for this project. We would definitely do things a lot differently now, but just wanted to go back and show how we originally poured this thing. So keep that in mind if you're doing a mold of a similar shape and size. We then put the 2 halves of the mold together and flip it upright so we can start pouring in the rest of the silicone. However, instead of pouring from the tip of the tail, we spread it open to the body and pour it in there. That way it doesn't need to travel the length of the tail and fills in better. Once we start to see the silicone rise to the top, we close up the tail and pour it in the rest of the way. This pour ended up being super messy. I really wish I had more footage of us trying to stop all the leaks, but there wasn't much time to record when everything had went to shit. Our best guess on why it leaked was too much clamping pressure. It's kind of deforming the mold and allowing silicone to run out in spots that it shouldn't have been. Once the silicone dried, I could demold everything. I also want to point out how stupidly heavy this thing is. It's not easy to grip and should really be lifted with 2 people. But I decided I wanted to try and hurt myself getting it onto the table. The first thing I noticed was a lot of excess silicone around the fingers. However, the real issue was in the tail and some of the other big air pockets. Luckily, there was a thin skin layer which gave me an advantage on repairing the hollow sections. I was able to make a small incision on the facehugger to fill it up with more silicone. For the smaller air pockets, I used a syringe to carefully inject the silicone, which worked very well. Given how badly the initial pour was for this, with all the leaks and air pockets, I was really happy on how it turned out. Okay, so try number 2. We were a lot more careful and prepared this time around, also while changing the color back to its more classic look. We also tried tilting the mold and hitting it with a mallet to spread around the silicone and get rid of any air pockets. However, this still didn't come out how I had hoped. There was barely any silicone for the tail, and I didn't have any tips on the top 2 fingers. To fix the tail, I cut off the bad portion and repoured it in hopes that it will bond to the rest of the facehugger. And to my surprise, that worked really well. However, the same could not be said about the fingers. I'm not quite sure why this didn't work as well as the tail did, but it's possible that some of the ease release could have gotten onto the fingers to ruin the bond. Regardless, I cut back both fingers and tried to give it a more shot up type of look, and may try to paint it as a dead acid oozing facehugger in the future. As always, the third time seems to be the charm, but the main differences that we tried with this pour is that we degassed the silicone ahead of time, poured the mold at an angle, and then used the Sawzall to try to get out any air bubbles. Sadly, this also resulted in a failure. There ended up being a lot of flat surfaces on the fingers, which I assume is from the angle it was on, plus the tail was missing some of its features as well. Okay, so after 3 tries, we didn't even get a better casting than we did on the original, which we did years ago. And that's disappointing. I have a few ideas on why it didn't work like it originally did. One is we used a different type of silicone that actually, I think the one that cures quicker would be better, and I used one that cured longer. So that's one issue. I think the mold could have been old and deformed after sitting for all those years, and maybe we were just pouring at the wrong angle. So those are my main theories. I also want to point out that shaking or vibrating silicone will not help you get out the air bubbles. In fact, it actually works against you and creates more. Now, why was I doing that in this video? It's because I didn't know better, and I talked to the reps at Smooth On, and they say that only works for concrete. So don't go shaking your silicone. Bad idea. Unfortunately, I think it's the end of me trying to use this mold to get a facehugger. I want the new one to be an animatronic anyway, and this really won't help with that. Plus, I'm kind of done spending money on silicone for this. So let's talk about where this project goes from here. The 10-inch tube from the last tank was a bit tight for the facehugger, so instead I decided to upgrade to a 12-inch acrylic tube. However, unlike the glass, I now needed to make a bottom cap to hold in the water. I started by drilling and tapping a piece of 3/4 inch acrylic to accept the plumbing fittings, then carefully cut out a circle with my shaper origin to the size of the new tube. Then I mixed this plastic bonding epoxy and glued the 2 pieces together. Next was to install the plumbing fittings and then put the new tank into the thrown together cart so I can test it for leaks. Which, of course, there was. Luckily, I was able to fix this by adding some clear caulk to the inside of the tank. Now that the new holding tank was complete, it was time to start working on some of the animatronics. I built this small stand, then 3D printed a rough layout of the facehugger's frame so I can add fingers and parts for the tail. I tried using 3D printed parts at first for the fingers, but they ended up breaking too easily, so I switched to using all metal instead. Now, I didn't magically figure out how to do this. I actually learned this fingering technique from your mom. But really, I learned all this from doing the online Stan Winston courses. So if you're interested in doing anything kind of like this with animatronics or molding, I would highly recommend checking that out. For the tail, I kept the 3D printed pieces since they were thick enough, and then sleeved them over all the cables. However, this wasn't working like how I saw it operate in the video, so I may have to go back to the drawing board on this one. And this is about as far as I got with the new tank. So the plan moving forward is to have the top and bottom parts of the tank be fully made out of steel and welded together, as well as a fully functioning animatronic facehugger that floats in the water, maybe whips around when someone walks by it. I'm not sure, but I have a couple ideas. However, this project is probably still far a ways, with me just getting a new house and some home renovation stuff, as well as me trying to maybe branch out and do some product stuff, or I don't know. Got a couple different things I'm trying to shoot in different directions, but I didn't want to end this video without a finished project, so I resurrected the old tank for a different kind of alien to go in it. Since the glass was wedged into the bottom base, I hit it with a heat gun to expand the plastic so I could rip it out. Then I put in a new tube, which I bent into a cylinder from a flat sheet of acrylic. The creature I'm putting in here is actually a plushy chestburster that I've had since I was a small child. It's also being held up by these 3D printed jaws I made that were inspired by the short clip in the 2010 AVP game. All that was left to do now was to throw this guy in the tube and wire everything up. The light button powers on all the LEDs. Ashlee had painted this tank a while ago and did such a great job giving it that metallic look and painting the Weyland-Yutani logo. And the old oxygen button for the bubbler now works this screen that plays my favorite scenes from Alien and Aliens. And of course, the emergency stop button shuts everything off. I did add one thing to the top base, which was cutting in these speakers to play audio that comes from the screen. Lastly, here's a quick shot of the spaghetti mess of wires that operates everything. Even though I'm pretty far away from getting the actual facehugger tank that I want, I was really happy to be able to kind of combine the old tank with my old chestburster that I've had forever and kind of make a cool nostalgia project. As always, a big thank you to Ashlee and Phil. I would not have been able to do this without them, especially all of Ashlee's research, and the paint job on the facehugger looks amazing. So very happy I have that, and this project was not at all a loss. That's going to be about it for this one. I have no idea when part 3 is going to be out, but yeah. That's all I got for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you on the next one. So this is the first video I've recorded in the new place. There's a new setup. It's not in a dungy basement, although you can't tell because I usually have it facing. See, I don't know if you can hear that. I'm set up next to the road. There's a busy road next to me, and cars drive by. So every time I try to talk to the camera, they go by, and it messes it up. I don't even know if you can hear it, and I hate recording the audio for these videos. It is torture to me, and those cars make it worse. yeah, no, I'm just gonna rant. I don't have a skip for the end of this video. I'm just sitting here ranting because I'm in the middle of recording this one, and they're driving me nuts. They're driving me nuts. I don't know if you can hear them. I don't know. I don't know, but I need help. They're right out there. They're out the window. And it makes it so much harder to record these. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you on the next one.